What's up, guys? Welcome to another video here. In this one, let's look at Pultec EQs, and I'm hoping to sort of demystify and break this stuff down. This is definitely one of the more complex EQs to understand. You know, it's a very musical EQ. It's a very powerful EQ. You'll see this a lot in mastering as well as mixing. It's great for warming tracks up, opening up the top end. Again, it works in a very unique way. So, with that said, let's break this thing down. You can sort of think about the EQ in two I think about it in three sections, but you can pretty much split it in half. The low end is going to work on here, these three knobs on the left, these two top and this bottom. So you've got boost, attenuation, and your low frequencies. Low frequency is pretty self-explanatory. You got 20 hertz, 30 hertz, 60, and 100 hertz. Boost does what it says it does. It boosts. Attenuation, attenuates, it cuts. But the thing is when you start boosting and attenuating at the same time, you start to get resonant curves, and that's easier to show you than it is to really just tell you about it. So let's bring up this Resonant EQ, and we can illustrate these, what I'm talking about here, because this thing sort of emulates what's going on here. So let's say 30 hertz. So we'll grab 30 hertz there, and you'll see as I boost it, you're boosting all of this information here to shelf, but you're also dipping out a lot here, so you start to get this resonant curve, and that's exactly what's happening here. So you start boosting all the bottom end on something, but at the same time you're sort of dipping out the mud. And the higher up you boost, the more exaggerated that dip gets. So you can get very abusive, just like any tool or EQ or compressor. But subtly, if you know what you're doing, you can really add some warmth and really add some bump on your tracks. So let's see, I'll put this over here. I've got a track here, and it's a little pop thing. Sounds like that. So let's boost some 30, and then we'll roll in the attenuation, and you can kind of hear what happens. So this is going to sound like garbage, but again, let's just exaggerate it, and it's easy to understand. Alright, so a ton of bass in that, right? Now let's roll in some attenuation. And now there's still a ton of bass, but it gets a little more compact, it gets a little tighter. Here's where we started. Again, so you can start to see the power of that. If you really want to add some thud in your tracks in mastering or on a bass guitar or whatever, like this is a great tool to use for that. So that's the low end. Let's reset these plugins, bring this back to 0, and let's talk about the high end. Okay, so the high end is, I split the high end in half. So first, let's talk about the attenuation. This is a shelf. You've got this attenuation knob, which is doing the same thing this one is fundamentally. And then you have your attenuation select. So you got 20K, 10K, 5K. We can see what happens here. We'll attenuate it. 5K is the most extreme setting. So this would be, we'll go 6 dB at 5K. Come here, select 5K on the Renaissance. Bring this down about 6 dB, and you can start to see we get this bump, this resonant shelf here, when we start cutting. And here's what that sounds like in our track. Again, you start filtering out all that top end, track closes up. But you can use this in combination with these three controls which is it's your standard bell curve. You've got boost, you've got your Q knob or bandwidth, and then you select your frequency. So we can go 8K, boost 7 dB. I'll keep our bandwidth down the center. So let's see what happens here when we're at 8K. We'll boost, a good amount here. And you can start to see what happens to these curves. You can get very unique shapes in the top end, which is pretty cool. And you can narrow this stuff out. And that's it. That's with us attenuating at 5K. If we attenuate at 20K, watch what happens to the curve. Now it flips up like a huge crazy bell, so it gets very dramatic. If we were to attenuate at 10K, this is what it would look like. Split the difference between the two. And that's what the top end's doing, which can get very confusing. That's why I'm saying it's easier to show you with that graphical representation of what the curve's doing rather than just turning knobs and trying to hear this stuff. So let's do, let's see, we're already attenuating. We'll go a little more dramatic. 5K, 7, and then I'll slowly roll the boost in at 8K.
Singing, baby, I scream loud enough for you, only if you want me to.
You can hear the top end start to roll back in.
Only if you want me to, I scream loud enough for you.
I'll bypass it on and off a couple times.
Singing, baby, I scream loud enough for you, only if you want me to, I scream loud enough.
Again, you're not going to get a huge difference there. Real subtle changes at that point. But we're doing all this crazy stuff. So we'll attenuate at 10K.
For you, 'cause I'm not a traitor, I'm not a traitor, I'm not a traitor, I'm not a traitor.
That's 20K.
For you.
Again, if you bring that attenuation down, it starts to get a little more dramatic.
Singing, baby, I scream loud enough for you, only if you want me to, I scream loud.
So there you go. That's the Pultec EQ. I hope this cleared up the functions of this thing for you. Again, if you can, this is a great EQ. It's a great tool. There's a lot of different plugins. This one's the Puig-Tec from Waves. They've modeled JJP's, Pultecs. These EQs came out in the 50s, and they've been used on all sorts of stuff. Now, I remember when I was interning, I kind of ignored them, and I always went for the parametric EQs, the graphical EQs, and kind of didn't really understand what these were about until one of the older guys came in and sat me down and called me a dumbass for not using them, and sort of showed me what was up. Again, but yeah, pretty powerful stuff. Play with them, experiment with them. Google, Pultec EQs and read up on them. They're really great. I think, in my opinion, they're definitely one of the more musical tools. As far as EQs go, you can do a lot of really cool, subtle, musical things with these things. So that's my spiel on the Pultec. Like the video, subscribe. If you have unique experiences with Pultecs, leave them down in the comments. You like them, you hate them, you love them, whatever. Add us on Facebook, Twitter, all that. And we'll see you in the next video.